Hey everybody, it's Dan Ryan, PMP exam trainer. I've been getting tons of inquiries about the new PMBOK 7 now that it's dropped, and everybody wants to know, should I study with PMBOK 6? Should I study with PMBOK 7? What does it mean to the exam? So we're doing an unboxing of it, a 3-part series. This will be the first part you're about to watch now. Myself, Oliver Lehman, a legend in the PMP industry, and my mentor, Wayne Brown, the guy who helped me get PMP certified way back when. All right, so a 3-part series. It's going to be really cool. We're going to cover, from a high level, all the aspects of PMBOK 7 and what it means, not just to the exam, but, to project management. All right, so people are going to be asking questions. It's going to be lively discussion. All right, so enjoy the presentation, 90 minutes, part 1 of 3. For the PMBOK 7 unboxing. See you in class. All right, we are having a very exciting presentation today by myself, Oliver Lehman, and Wayne Brown. And at this time, I think I would like to say hello, but we're going to be doing an overview of PMBOK Guide 7, sort of like a unboxing and set of first impressions. All right, my name is Dan Ryan, and I am familiar with PMP exam preparation for many years now, helping thousands of people at my website, the PMExamcoach.com. And I'm glad to be joined today by my original mentor and trainer, Wayne Brown, who trained me in the early 2000s or mid 2000s. And of course, very happy to be joined by a legend in the PMP prep world, Oliver Lehman. So at this time, I would like to introduce Oliver. And Oliver, please, how are you? Thank you for being here. And please share a few words with us.
Yeah. Can I start my video?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Can I start my video?
Oh, yeah. Why? Your video isn't started?
It says you cannot start your video. Okay, but I can talk without the video.
Let me work on that. You say hello and I'll work
on that. You work on that and I say hello to everyone. It's a big pleasure to be here. It's a big honor to be here with Dan Ryan. There he is. That's cool, Dan. We see you and we hear me.
There, I made you co-host.
You made me co-host.
Try it now.
It still says, now it's working. Good. Very good. Very good. So, I can't hear you anymore.
Yeah, I can hear you. I went on mute for you, so go ahead, man.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to be here, and I heard that we'll have a large audience here. I think we already have, so there seems to be something interesting. I guess it's not me. I guess it's the PMBOK Guide why people are all here. So let's hope that today and in our second session, we will just be able to answer all your questions, remove all the uncertainties so that you know what it's about. We have Wayne here, Wayne Brown. Can you also give us a hello?
Sure. Thank you, Oliver. I'm Wayne, and I have been working with Dan for the past few years. And as Dan mentioned, he was in a class, a PMP exam prep class of mine back in 2010, I believe it was, Dan. And I have been teaching PMP exam prep since 2005. And these days, principally what I do, I haven't been going on the road to teach courses due to COVID and whatnot, but what I do these days is primarily working with Dan. I'm doing PDU classes in the afternoon that Oliver and Dan are going to be talking about, and I also do tutoring. And occasionally we'll do a cover for Dan when he'd like a night off from training.
Right, but Wayne, tell him about the name of your book.
Oh my God, I never mentioned that, Dan.
Go ahead, right now.
Oh, geez, you're embarrassing me. Yeah, I wrote a book past year. It's on Amazon and Kindle. Confessions of a Talented, Confessions of a, forgetting the title of my own book, Confessions of a Nerdy but Not Very Talented Engineer, sort of a tongue-in-cheek memoir and whatnot. But what I do legitimately is I do teach for Dan PDU classes, tutoring, and an occasional PMP exam prep at night when he'd like a night off to take his wife to dinner. That's basically
Can't work 7 days a week. Yeah, no, Wayne, thank you so much for being here. I put the information for everybody for your book in the chat, and then, but Wayne, wow, you left out one part of our training course in 2010.
And
you told us to do, you said we got these really wacky but really hard questions on the internet, and they're really strong, but they're by this guy Oliver. I think you should go and check them out.
Yeah, let me do mention that I'm always encouraging people in preparing for the exam to do as many practice questions as you possibly can before you take the exam. And I said you want increasingly challenging questions. And I'd always said if you want to have the gold standard of challenging questions, go to oliverlehman.com. He's got questions that are amazing. And so now here we are with Oliver doing a presentation. That's
just to tag on to that, Oliver has updated that with many new sources for the new exam and other things with games and bells and whistles. But all right, without further ado, Oliver, I'm going to stop my share and allow you to, run this presentation, and Wayne and I will offer some commentary or, ask some questions. If anybody has a question, we have a Q&A feature. We won't be able to answer every one. I'll be looking at the QA feature. I'll be looking at the key questions. If I like one, I'm going to send it over to Oliver to answer it for you.
Very good. And by the way, the change of the share won't change that much for the attendees because, first of all, it's the same thing that I have here.
Mm-hmm. I see your screen.
No, it's not green.
I see your screen.
So you see my screen. Thank you. Yes, it's true. Yeah. So,
all right, so guys, Oliver, take it away. Guys, stick around till the end. We got something interesting to show you at the end. Oliver, go right ahead, sir.
Okay. So just 1 second. I have already shared the screen shared, so don't need this anymore. Yeah. So that's us here, and. But this is the more interesting part. It will be first about generally the new PMBOK guide, what is changing here. Then we have these 12 principles of the PMBOK guide. We have the so-called performance domains. Those who went some years ago maybe for the PMP know this term from the examination content outline. That's the syllabus of the exam. So we find now the same term in the PMBOK guide, but we find different performance domains there. And then there's a third part about tailoring, modeling, methods that are in use, and artifacts, and so on. We will have 2 sessions. One session is today. The other one is, remind me, next Thursday, I think. Dan?
I'm so sorry I was on mute. Yep, we are going to have a part 2. Stick around till the end. We'll show you how you can get registered for part 2. Oliver, Oliver's going to be showing you a slide on the PDU information. You are responsible for claiming and registering your own PDUs. Oliver, you can help them with that.
Okay, I will be happy to help them with that. You can register 1.5 PDUs today and another 1.5 PDU in next week, Thursday. So that's 3 PDUs.
We got a slide coming up on it.
We've got a slide coming up. Yes. Okay. So there it is. Exactly. So we have 2 sessions, and that's per session here. And if you have any difficulties, ask. But I think most of you know how to do that. And I think that should be an easy task for you. It's not something we can do for you. PMI doesn't have such a process. It's something you will have to do on your own. Yeah. So if you have any questions, just ask. Yeah. Then here's an overview of the 7th edition. We will talk here and there about the differences to the 6th edition as well, by the way. It was, I would say, unofficially released on the 1st of July, which was a bit strange. It was announced for August and July, and then the online version was made available by PMI for download only, and only the English version, no other language versions, on 1st of July. I ordered my paper copy, by the way, of the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. I would have loved so much to do an unboxing here with you, but it's still not there. I heard of some people, they got it just today, the first ones. So I hope I will have it in the next days, but it will not come today anymore, of course. Don't forget, here in Europe, it's sent from the UK, and it has to be sent over to the EU, to Germany inside the EU, which has become very, very complicated in the last couple of months, unfortunately. So I don't have the paper copy here, but of course we have the online copy here, the PDF version. There's also an ebook version, Kindle version. I, at least for exams, don't recommend that for exam preparation. Ebooks in the past had the disadvantage that we couldn't see any page number. So when I tell my students, please go to page number 25, they had no idea where that was. It may change with the next version. I haven't checked it yet, to be honest. 370 pages. I think that was the main reason, one of the main reasons why PMI said, let's have a restart again. Let's start at 0 again, because PMBOK Guide, as you may be aware of, it became thicker and thicker over time and larger. Yeah. By the way, I still have the very first PMBOK Guide here with me. Yeah. This thin booklet was the original PMBOK Guide. Yeah. And then it got thicker and thicker. So PMI said we cannot move on like that, and they restarted it. So the good news is it is smaller than the old versions. How you want to see it is your decision, but maybe for some of you, the bad news is the old PMBOK Guide 6th edition remains valid for a while. So actually, this is now an add-on to the PMBOK Guide 6th edition, not a replacement. Will make learning for the exam not necessarily easier. Yeah. But the language, by the way, is much easier. It's easier to read now. The PMBOK Guide 6th edition at times was very, very hard to read. This was a very, almost like a law, the English. Now it is a bit more concise and more accessible for people. Published by the Project Management Institute, of course. One idea of the PMBOK Guide 7th edition, we are just stepping into the topic. Yeah. So if you see something where you say, hey, Oliver, I have a question on that, please put it into the chat so that Wayne and Dan will see it. And if they think, hey, that's an interesting question, they will just bring the question up.
Yeah, well, they could also, I'm also asking everybody to use the QA feature to submit questions.
Yeah.
Or chat.
You're observing both?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, very good. Very good. Yeah. PMBOK Guide in its entry text says an important thing was customer-centered design, whatever this is in a specific situation, because I think as an association, PMI, first of all, has members, and we had a lot of discussions about that. And I told PMI staff, hey, you're not customer-centered, you are member-centered. Yeah, but our members are also customers, and we have sponsors, we have organizations, and some more. And they all together are customers for us. So that's what PMI means when they say customers. To me, it always feels a bit strange because I don't feel like being a customer. I feel like being a member, being a volunteer at PMI. And I was with PMI since 1998. So it's an important part of my life. So they talked with people like us here, and they were told practitioners would like to see an emphasis on 4 key points. One thing is maintain and enhance the credibility and relevance of the PMBOK guide. I think that's very much something that has to do with language here, because part of the lack of relevance from time to time was really language. It was so hard to read. Another thing is the number of people working on that was very, very big. So what we saw in the last PMBOK guide were certain inconsistencies in the PMBOK guide. So, and these also damage the relevance of the PMBOK guide, because if there is in one place it says this, and another one it says that, this damages the relevance of such a book. By the way, they resolved a lot of these inconsistencies, and I would like to say thank you to all those people who worked on that. I was one of them, by the way. But we have some new inconsistencies, yeah. So that's what happens when you have a lot of people with different opinions, different understanding of things, and so on. We still have some inconsistencies there, but I think they are less hurting than with the 6th edition. It got a bit more concise, it got clearer. And I think this is also something that increases the credibility. Yeah. Then readability and usefulness. Yeah, as I said, language is an important thing. Avoiding overstuffing with new content. A very simple example, the 6th edition had a lot of text on earned value method, earned value analysis, and value management, whatever you want to call it, and value technique. This has been shortened very, very much. And then it says, hey, we have a separate standard for that, the practice standard for earned value management. And that's where you find more details. So that's a way how they could shorten that. So I think the readability and usefulness increased with that. That's really a goal and an objective that they really met. Yeah, sense stakeholder information and content needs and provide vetted supplemental content supporting practical application. It's a bit of a strange sentence then again, but what they mean is the PMBOK guide is not necessarily a document that stands alone. Yeah, and the topics are not necessarily only topics that belong into such a document. There's some overlapping with other fields, with other areas which are still relevant for practical application. Whether this was always successful is another question. Yeah, and then there was a shift, an important shift, that instead of processes in the past and knowledge areas and process groups and so on, we now have a completely different structure in it. To do it in a way that the old versions of the PMBOK guide, in particular the 6th edition, of course, that they don't lose value, that we are not saying, hey, we are changing everything now, and the old statements are no more true. We have new statements now instead of that. It goes in a different direction. But if you're interested in the processes of project management, then the 6th edition is still there and still holds its value.
All right, let's pause right there for a second. I've already been, as we discussed jokingly a little bit, I was right in my prediction of the #1 most popular question. And so far I've gotten about 5 or 6 about the same thing. And here's what it says. I'm going to take a crack at answering it. You tell me if I'm right. All right, Dan, do I need to have both the 6th and 7th edition to study PMP? Is 6 no longer valid? Do I have to study 6? What about by the end of the year? All right, so here's how I understand it, Oliver.
Please.
Everything that is in the PMBOK 6 is still true. It's not that PMBOK 6 becomes invalid. Currently, it is all still true related to the 49 processes, the progressive elaboration, the process groups, and the knowledge areas. However, PMBOK 7 is going to be an additional standard. Currently, it is not used as a reference to the PMP exam, although that could change in the future, but we're sort of waiting on PMI to make that determination. So for the time being, Customers are told to stand fast. And if you're taking the exam by the end of the year, 12/31, focus with PMBOK 6, Agile Practice Guide, and a good PMP program like mine. After December, we're looking at PMI. We're trying to see what they're going to do. And after December, moving into next year, PMBOK 7 could come into the picture more. Oliver?
I think it will come a bit earlier, but not as
Okay, forget about the timing. Forget about the timing. Was my description appropriate?
Now, generally, your prescription is absolutely correct. The only thing where I would see things a bit differently is today. If we take the 4th of August, 2021, what you need to know is, among some other literature, is the PMBOK Guide 6th edition as the guiding reference, the most important reference for the exam. Not the only exam reference, to say this as well. We also have there the Agile Practice Guide, and we have some other literature, some other books. We have some topics that are not linked with the PMBOK Guide or the Agile Practice Guide. We simply have to accept that. Over the next couple of months, and I don't think it will start next year, it will start this year, I think. Say maybe, I'm not 100% sure, but maybe in October or in November, we will see the first PMBOK Guide 7 questions that have this as a referent. It's not asking PMBOK Guide 7. It's not asking you, have you learned the book by heart? That's not the topic here, but that's where the reference is. Why is this answer right and other answers are wrong? And is it relevant for the exam and so on? This is what the reference is for. And questions that use the PMBOK Guide 7th edition as a reference will creep in towards the end of the year. It will not be the majority, as far as I believe, because there is a certain renewal cycle of exam questions at PMI. That's a continuous process at PMI, and so many questions are replaced every month with some other questions. I cannot tell you the number, but it's definitively not 100% of an exam. It's less than that. So we will have some questions creep in, and I would expect next year that a major percentage of the questions relate to the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. In my materials, my training materials, my test, my practice tests that you already spoke about, the free ones, I have already one set of questions with the first PMBOK Guide 7 related questions in, so that you can get a feeling. So what is different? By the way, the majority of contents could be referenced to the PMBOK Guide 6th and to the PMBOK Guide 7th identically, or even to the Agile Practice Guide and PMBOK Guide 7th identically, because they make similar statements. And then when you are someone who has to write a question and give PMI the reference, why is this question right, and why is the right answer right and the wrong answers are wrong, then you could reference to the PMBOK Guide 7, to the 6th edition, maybe to the Agile Practice Guide, because
Scrum Guide.
Bring the Scrum Guide, yeah, of course.
There's 11 different academic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right. Well, we got to pick up the pace here, Ollie.
Yeah, sorry, I'm answering a question.
I know. We're good. Let's
it will creep in. They will creep in. Yeah. And you will see more, but this does not necessarily mean that we have just all new materials and all new contents. It will be similar things that we had in so far in our documentation as well. Yeah, I told you I'm a storyteller. Right. So the evolution. These are the PMBOK guides of the past. You saw the first one in my hands just. Yeah, they got thicker and thicker over time. The language, I think, got more and more difficult over time. So PMI said with this PMBOK Guide 6th edition, let's have a break here. Let's restart the whole process. And we will see in future where this will lead us to. Yeah, here are some examples: 176 pages, PMBOK Guide 1 and 390, and you see how this goes up over time. Yeah. The number of processes, with one exception, went up over time. Yeah. So, right. Now we're down back again to 370 pages, which is on one side good news. on the other side, PMBOK Guide 6 is still relevant and will stay relevant for a while. Radical shift. Yes, correct. Yeah. This was a quick one. Principles-based approach. And principle and performance domains. So this is what does it mean? You see on the left-hand side the 6th edition, and I assume most of you know that. If you are a PMP, you probably have used the PMBOK Guide 6th edition for your preparation. Maybe you use it in your practice as well. I use it very often. So this is the structure that we had with the 3 introductory chapters, and then we have our 10 knowledge areas, and then there is a strange addition somehow, the standard for project management, where I tell my PMP students that's something you don't have to read. It doesn't really bring anything new. It's a repetition with a different structure and so on, but it's a repetition of the first pass. So I recommend my students to skip this one. I have no such recommendation now for the 7th edition, unfortunately. The 7th edition has 2 parts. One part is the standard for project management again, which is now the beginning. It is the official ANSI standard, American National Standardization Institute standard for project management. It is the shorter part of the 2 books, far shorter. It's shorter than the old one, by the way. And then we have the guide to the project management body of knowledge, which now brings no more 10 knowledge areas, but instead it has, what is it, 8 performance domains in here. No, 9 performance domains in here. No. Then this tailoring models and methods. And
Oliver, let me ask a question.
Yes, please.
So the way I understand it is that the standard for project management, the ANSI standard, that is the statement. That is the statement of what the best characteristics for project management are according to ANSI as an organization, which is a worldwide respected organization. And the guide to the project management body of knowledge on the bottom is the answer to that statement.
I think that's the way how you could see it. That's a
right.
Way yeah, it's a way how you could look at that. Actually, this is a new approach to me to see it this way, because they have different structure. The structure is completely different. They look at the same thing, yeah, but it's like you look at a coin from the face side and then from the edge or so. Yeah, it's still the same coin, but you see different coin, but you look at different things. So that's how I see it normally.
Like old wine and new wine bottles. That's what my friend Wayne Brown likes to say.
Yeah.
Wayne,
yeah.
what do you think? What do you think, Wayne, of the ANSI standard and the PMBOK Guide's response to it?
Yeah, I just had to unmute myself there. I mean, it's nice that it's sort of based on the ANSI standard that gives it credibility and whatnot. I hadn't frankly thought about it all that much, but it was a little confusing in the 6th edition. Like Oliver was saying, you had the guide to project management body of knowledge, and then the standard in the back of the book that most people weren't looking at, but maybe it's improved upon now in version 7 here. But
there is a huge difference between those two that people outside don't know that much. The guide to the project management of knowledge, project management body of knowledge, is just developed by PMI and no one else. The ANSI standard is also developed by PMI, but a third party has a saying in that, and that's of course ANSI. So someone else from outside PMI is looking into that and says, okay, is this really what we expect here? Is this really what we want to see here? And I think that's a major difference between those two sections. And another thing with the ANSI is that this is normally in alignment with an ISO standard. We have an ISO standard on project
International Standards Organization.
Exactly, an international standard. ANSI is American standard. In Germany, we have DIN German standard, Deutsches Institut für Normung, and so on. So this should harmonize all the national standards. And I think one of the reasons why this part is kept relatively small, it makes it easier to harmonize this over the different national standards. So the approach is a different one, and the objective here is a different one. A guide to the project management body of knowledge is really that thing that we want to see as project managers. But on the other hand, in these principles, you find some interesting principles there. And it's a bit about, what are qualities of a project management? Stewardship is personal quality, much more than processes. Team, partially processes, partially a personal quality. What we see is this is to some degree oriented at the person more than at the process, while these performance domains are much nearer to our process understanding, a bit more technical. Nothing negates the old PMBOK Guide 6. We said this already repeatedly. Some will say, hey, I like that, and some will say, hey, I don't like that, because it's much more to read now and much more source material that we have. So there are two opinions on that. These are the contents with the sections inside, the standard for project management and the guide to the project management body of knowledge, with its performance domains, then tailoring, as I said already, models, methods, and artifacts. Artifacts has widely replaced our deliverables. In the past, we talked about deliverables. I was often asked, is there a difference between deliverables and artifacts? Quick answer, almost no. If you go into extreme details, you could say, hey, but this is a bit different here. In general, I would say, and for our application, I would say it's the same thing, deliverables replaced with artifacts. The understanding is a bit different. Artifacts means someone made that. Deliverable means someone made something and someone else, or maybe the same person, will then pick this up and use it further, do something with that. So there's more the delivery aspect there. Artifacts is more the work that went into that as a principle for terminology, but it means the same thing. Sorry, did I go back? No, I have. So we have the standard for project management. The first part, I think it's under 70 pages or so. It's a short thing, understanding project management and how it enables intended outcomes.
All right, let's be realistic here. Is this going to be the thing that everybody just immediately skips over and goes to page 1 of the PMBOK?
I think this time this would no more be my my recommendation. I think, let's say for the PMP exam, or CAPM as well, I think, in the future, we will see what happens with CAPM. But for the PMP exam, I would read the entire PMBOK guide, both parts, the standard and the PMBOK guide. I would read both parts here, because it is more different to the PMBOK guide than it was in the past. It's not just a repetition. It's at the first place there anyway. So I would take both parts. Regardless of industry and so on, that's something we also had in the past. A system for value delivery. This is one of the parts where I have lots of discussions about. So the idea now is we are not just there to deliver deliverables. We are there to deliver value for those we work for the organization and stakeholders. By the way, there is a statement in the PMBOK guide about what organization is. It could also be a contractual arrangement, which would say, hey, we could have 2 or 3 organizations together under contract. Those who know me very well know this is my other big topic at the moment, project business management. It is addressed once, and actually it was the result of a discussion I had with one of the developers on that. I think it is a result of that. It turned up after our discussion. I think the PMBOK guide is made for internal projects. Those of you who do projects for paying customers, for whom a project is a profit center, those of you who manage profit centers, this is what happens on your customer side. And it is important to understand your customer. So that's the value for you in the PMBOK guide. It does not talk about things like profitability of a project for a customer, cash flow questions, liquidity, and so on. These topics do not turn up anywhere in the PMBOK guide. If this is the world you are in, then approach me. This is my other big topic on top of this one here. Yeah. Then there's a discussion of what portfolios, programs, and projects are. Products come in, operations come in. We will see a slide on that in here, the first one. Yeah. So this is the idea with this value delivery systems. We have some environments in which we are working with our project. First of all, an external environment, the world we are in. Yeah. Then we have an internal environment, the organization where we are working. Then inside this environment, we may have some portfolios. Portfolio, a collection of projects that are not necessarily linked with each other, but use the same resources. There are some resource pools there. Could be people, machinery, rooms, yeah. Management attention, by the way. To me, resource number one is management attention. And inside a portfolio, projects share that. So we are really internally here. Projects may also be part of a program. Program means the projects are content-wise linked with each other. There's some relationship between them because together they create a program result that each project alone could not bring. So this is more about the content that they create, about the results that they create. Portfolio looks more at the resources they are consuming, and good portfolio management begins with not overloading the portfolio with too many projects at a time. Yeah. Here we see a program which is not inside a portfolio, if you like, and here we see a number of projects that are even not part of a program. They just stand alone here. So that's what this diagram is trying to tell us here. By the way, you see my mouse when I move it? Yeah. Do you see my mouse?
Oh, yeah.
Good. Very good.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. This is a sequence how communication of goals and of objectives, yeah, and of outcomes that we have that meet these goals, meet these objectives, how this is expected to be. So it goes down from senior leadership to projects, and maybe from projects even to operations. Yeah? You do some work for operations, and they will then have to use your deliverables. Here the word deliverables is used. Use these deliverables, put them into operations, and something comes back then. Yeah, could be feedback, it could be information, what else they need, and so on. I can go up here again. I like this diagram because if you turn it by 90 degrees, programs and projects stand above operations. Yeah, but that's not how it is communicated here. But we see programs and projects, particularly projects, as something that is separate to operations here. By the way, most organizations make their money with operations. So I think in these organizations, projects will be weaker than operations. If you are in a company that makes money with projects, where a project is a profit center, project managers are typically much stronger again. But that's a different discussion. It does not turn up in the PMBOK guide. Yeah. Everything gets more and more interlinked, yeah, which is good news and bad news at the same time. Yeah. A product is an artifact that is produced. It's quantifiable. Not all products are quantifiable, I think. Yeah. It can be either an end item or a component item. So the assumption is we develop something in here which has a product at its end. The product could also be the enablement to do some services. Yeah. By the way, if you remove some industrial plant somewhere, if you dismantle a plant and make things green again in the end, yeah, that this could also be a product. The product is then that you have a park where factory was before also. So it could be anything. I think we have some projects where this definition is not perfect, but for a majority of projects, it will probably be right. Yeah. Then the word integration turns up, and I think overall PMBOK guides so far, one of the integrated forces, one of the consistent statements, one of the consistent things that we saw was the supremacy of integration. If someone asks me, Oliver, what is the most important skill of a project manager? Is it scheduling? Is it people management? Is it scope management or whatever what is it? Yeah? Then my answer is always integration, integrating this all. That's the most important thing, including risk management and many other things.
All right, so I've got a question.
Yes.
You know, the new PMI exam content outline is comprised of 35 task statements that go across 3 domains: people, process, business. One of the task statements is called manage project artifacts.
Yep.
And you're talking about artifacts,
yes,
Oliver. And yep. I'm pasting some enablers into the chat, but it's things like determine the requirements for the artifacts, validate the information, continually assess the effectiveness. Now, you're describing artifacts as deliverables. Talk to me here. Aren't artifacts sometimes also referred to as project documents?
Document is a deliverable.
Right, but it's not always a deliverable.
If you put a document into the archive, I think it's no more a deliverable.
Okay.
But if I write a document, if I write a report and ask you to read that, at this moment, my report is a deliverable.
Okay.
I deliver it to you. Actually, I deliver the information in the report.
All right, that's fine. But Oliver, it's not a deliverable listed on the scope statement.
No. No, the principle
Right? So
idea
it's a different kind of a deliverable.
It is a different kind of deliverable.
Thank you.
I think we had in the past the word used in different meanings. It's a bit like a chameleon, the word deliverable. And artifact, by the way, is very similar here. I have project deliverables. What do I to deliver at the end? If I have a phase model, I will have phase deliverables.
Yeah.
What has to be there at the end of a phase?
If you have a sprint, you have sprint user story deliverables.
Then in agile methods, yeah, your sprint goal is actually a deliverable as well. Yeah. So we have this on different levels, but the basic understanding with the word deliverable and artifact as well is we made something that someone else or we ourselves pick up and do something with that.
Okay. Thank you for that.
We deliver from A to B. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. By the way, this person who does something with that may be just taking it somewhere else and deliver it again, yeah, like a delivery driver.
Right, an artifact can be the output of a project management process and then used as an input to a subsequent.
Yes, as well. Yeah. If you take these two words as synonyms, then I think it's the easiest understanding here. Yeah. If you go very deep into the wording, then there is some small difference. Yeah. But I think it's very small. In essence, you can say it's the same thing. Yeah. Right. Introduction, growth, maturity, and retirement. Yeah. Product life cycles. So the PMBOK Guide 7th edition, that's also new, closely connects the project life cycle from the beginning to the end of the project to a product life cycle. During a product life cycle, we may have several projects. That's something we see here. This is, by the way, said to be an example. This is not telling you this is how you've got to do it. It's an example what it could look like. In your case, it may be something different in your specific case, but you see there are some projects, yeah. Initial creation of our product, yeah, then adding some features to the product and doing this again and so on. And in the very end, the product is retired. Sometimes retirement is just running away, by the way. In other situations, this may be another project. Dismantling a nuclear power plant is a project that is probably 30 years. It may be longer. No one really knows it because it has not been done so far. It hasn't really been started so far with the production nuclear power plant. So this can be a very, very big project, by the way, retirement. In other places, they don't dismantle the plant, they just leave it there and build something new across the road or so. So, yeah, but these are examples how we can have during a project lifecycle, how we can have different projects in here. I'm dealing with people from MRO, that's an aerospace for maintenance, repair, and overhaul. An overhaul is often a huge project. And the idea is simply you take some old aircraft and make some newer aircraft out of that. Yeah. It can be huge projects there, but it's not a new product here. It's a product that is allowed to last longer and to be used for a longer period of time. Yeah. We saw already this diagram from the PMBOK guide with the different environments here. So what we have is internal environments, factors internal to the organization. In the PMBOK guide 6th edition, it's called organizational process assets. What we still have is the word process asset. Yeah. So this concept is still there. Assets means it is something that the organization owns. Assets in real life can be money, can be buildings, can be machinery, whatever it is. What we do in projects is we turn project organizational assets into project resources. We make project resources out of that. That's an essential aspect of project management. So if it is internal assets, then we will turn them into resources that we can use. And the term resource is, as I use it at the moment, a very wide term. Yeah. It may include that we have a trustful understanding in a team, yeah, and we can work well together in a team. This can be an asset, and in many projects it can be a resource as well. Know-how that we have, and many more things. Oh, management attention, my favorite one. First it's an asset, then we turn it into a resource. External environment, some more things that are coming from outside. In the PMBOK guide 6th edition, we have a term, enterprise environmental factors, EEF. Now it's just external environment, but it means in essence the same things: social matters, cultural matters, legal questions, yeah, and many other things. Then we have these principles in here. They guide the behavior of a project manager. So what you see is we are now in the first part, and the first part is based on these principles. PMBOK guide says we have principles that belong to two worlds, if you like, to two domains here. One is the project management domain, and the other one is the general management domain. And somehow they overlap as at an area where project managers are also really doing management tasks, and where general managers at least influence project management. They will not run the project, but they may influence project management as a sponsor, for instance, or as a member of a change control board or a steering committee, or whatever they are here in the moment. By the way, already in the PMBOK guide 6th edition, there is a little confusion on terminology, and it's not resolved in the 7th edition. Not a bad thing, not a difficult thing, we just have to know it. We at times find the term change control board. At other times, we find the term steering committee. This is the same thing. Steering committee is more used outside the US. Change control board is more used inside the US, but in essence, this is the same thing. And I think you find both as well in the PMBOK guide 7th edition. You never find them together, by the way. Yeah, so it's just different people using their terminology. A change control board or a steering committee is a place where general management influences project management.
Oliver?
Yes, please.
All right, we have a question, a comment from Maboob, and it says, to me, it looks like more clarity and discussion will be required as time passes due to Agile now being connected with the new PMBOK, phasing out PMBOK 6 and then fully adapting to 7 will take time.
Yes. I don't think that PMI is phasing out the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. These are decisions that may change over time. And I will have a meeting with PMI in the next couple of days, and I may get some new information on that.
Can you bring that back to us next week?
I hope so.
Okay.
Depends on what they tell me, whether this is public, is allowed to become public knowledge or not. If PMI tells me, Oliver, here's something that not everyone should know, then I, of course, cannot say. We will see. I hope I can do that. But the understanding that I have, it's about 3 or 4 weeks old now, is PMBOK Guide 6 will not be phased out. What happens is PMI has a new platform, which is called Standards Plus. And the PMBOK Guide 6, I think, meanwhile, the entire book is on Standards Plus. It's more like a knowledge base where you have a specific topic, and then you look for this topic. What does this knowledge base tell you? And among the sources for the knowledge base is the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. One of the questions that I still have open, that is still unanswered, is we will still have it as a PDF file, and we will still have it as a book that we can order. And I hope yes, because this is a book. This is not just content of a knowledge base. This is really meant to be a book. I don't think it will be phased out, and I hope it will remain available as a book for us. But again, there are some decisions open at PMI, and at the moment PMI is not in a position to make very big decisions, because you heard this probably, a new CEO will come into PMI. I have no idea who that will be. I think no one knows so far, but there is some new personal setup at the top, and I don't think that anyone wants to create facts today, establish facts today that will limit this future CEO. So there's a bit of slow development at the moment, if there's development there at all. But again, if I know something, I will, and I'm allowed to talk about that, then I will do that.
Thank you.
Promised. Yeah. Yeah. So we have these 12 project management principles. Yeah. And each of them, there's a keyword in that. Yeah. The first one, be a diligent, respectful, and caring steward. Yeah. So we have to apply stewardship. We don't have to become the steward, but we have to apply stewardship. Yeah. Then we have team as a next word. We have stakeholders at a next word. Focus on value. Yeah. The value is another thing. These are the 12 principles in here. And this is far away from our past process-based approach. Yeah. So what is stewardship? Yeah, encompasses responsibilities, taking care of people, yeah, diligent and respectful. Yeah. So these are the things that we expect here. People should uphold their integrity. Integrity is a bit an opposite to things like corruption. Also mental corruption, maybe not necessarily business corruption. Yeah. Clear thinking, open thinking, being careful for people, for the project, maintaining our trustworthiness. I think most of you are aware of Covey, and my favorite Covey quote is, "If you want to be trusted, be trustworthy." So that's really where we start the whole thing. Yeah. So that's a very positive thing. Yeah. Yeah. Compliance with law, with rules inside the organization, with industry good practices and so on. Yeah. And we look at many things together, by the way, including financial matters in here and sustainable environmental awareness. Yeah. PMI, a lot of PMI people who are active at PMI, they are very, very aware of environmentally important questions, including things such as climate change and COVID, of course, and pandemics and other things. This is the second principle: create a collaborative project team environments. Projects are delivered by project teams. Let's say it the other way around. Of course, you can have a project that you do alone. You go into your next DIY market, buy some tools, and put a fence around your house or whatever you like to do. And this is, of course, also a project, but you don't do too much project management there. You just do the project because you do it alone or with a small group of friends. Yeah, you make sure that you have some drinks at hand and some other things, but that's not really project management. As soon as you have projects that are delivered by teams, the question of management, project management, comes up. We have this topic from the agile world coming, where there is a preference for self-organized teams, self-directed teams, yeah? And still there is some management there. It's done by the team members then. Oh, by the way, one should allow them some time to do that. What I often see as a problem is they are expected to be self-organized and self-directed, but they're not given the time to organize themselves and to direct themselves. Then collaboration is an important thing for us here. Alignment with other organizational cultures and guidelines. Diversity is a big topic in PMI and in project management as well. Yeah, learning as a team. While we do things together, we learn together. Maybe one person can learn from the other one. We develop ourselves. Yeah. And optimal. I'm always careful with the word optimal, by the way. I think we shouldn't use it in project management. Yeah. Effective contributions. That's what I would prefer to deliver desired outcomes. Yeah. I don't think that anything will ever be optimal in a project. Yeah. That's the benefit that operations has. They can optimize. What we can do is improve. I think typical for project management is we can't really optimize. Effectively engage with stakeholders, and actively, of course. Yeah. They influence projects' performance and outcomes. Here is another little uncertainty that we have. Unfortunately, the word stakeholders has a lot of different meanings. And when I told my students 5 years ago, 10 years ago, there are 3 meanings of the term stakeholders. Meanwhile, I know 2 more. I know 5 different meanings. 2 of them are relevant for us. One is the meaning of the PMBOK guide, everyone who can influence your project. Yeah? The project performance and or the project outcomes, positively, negatively. Yeah? People we have to take care of, we have to think about, we have to pay attention to, develop empathy for, and so on. There is a totally different definition of the term stakeholders used, for example, in Scrum, in the Agile method Scrum. Their stakeholders are those people for whom we work. In the PMBOK guide understanding, your team members are stakeholders. The project manager is stakeholders. In Scrum understanding, the stakeholders are separate from your team members. They are the people for whom the team does all the work. What I use in my language today for this definition, I use the term target stakeholders. These are the people that are the target of our work. We work for them, we work with them to some degree, hopefully, yeah, but they are the target of our work. This a bit contradictory use of the word stakeholders has not been fully resolved. I think the PMBOK Guide 7th edition best understanding is the same as the 6th edition, what we just see here. people who influence the project, the work that we are doing and the results that come out of the project. But again, this other definition somehow shines a bit through, yeah. And you also find it in the Agile Practice Guide, which is also still around, by the way. We always talk about the two PMBOK guides. There is also the Agile Practice Guide, and an important resource for the exam. Yeah. I wasn't quite sure when the PMBOK Guide 7 will come. Will it replace the Agile Practice Guide? My current understanding is no, it won't. Yeah. We still need the Agile Practice Guide as well, which is easy to read, is short, comparatively short, yeah. Easy language, very concise, yeah. Very friendly language. Yeah. Yeah. You see here, project teams serve other stakeholders. So the understanding here, this is text taken from the PMBOK Guide. The PMBOK Guide sees project team members also as stakeholders. Yeah. Again, it's not 100% clear that all authors of the PMBOK Guide saw it like that. Yeah. But this is the main understanding, I think. Yeah. So focus on value. The ultimate indicator of project success. Yeah. It may be a bit difficult because value for one person, for one group, may not be value for the other person, for the other group. So, yeah. A focus on outcomes allows project teams to support the intended benefits that lead to value creation. Outcomes in contrast to the outputs that we had in the past. In the past, the main question was, do we deliver what we were ordered to deliver in the end, what was expected? Outcomes goes a bit outside this concept. Ask, what are the side effects of that? What is the perception of that? Do people really like it? Yeah. I saw software that was developed for organizations, and the employees that had to work with that had a lot of requirements, and all the requirements were met, but the people hated it. So the output may have been correct, but the outcome somehow was not correct. And people who have to work with software hate the software, then there's something wrong, I think. Yeah. Evaluate progress, adapt to maximize the expected value. Yeah.
Now, one way you're going to be able to do that is with your sprint review, your sprint retrospective, and looking at these deliverables that you've created in an iterative nature if you're using Agile, right? That's part of that reflect and adjust from the Agile manifesto.
I think to some degree, yes, but I think it goes wider. There are situations when we have to do make long-term predictions. Let me give you one of my two favorite examples. You're going to build a bridge. The first part of your project is to develop the design of the bridge. And this is a process which is highly iterative. Yeah. And you go on a discovery tour. You have to understand what are the requirements on the bridge, and what does this landscape where the bridge will be. What does it look like? Is it more intended to blend in, or is it more intended to stand out? And so on. There's a lot of creativity there. There is a lot of discovery there. So developing a bridge design, I think, can be well done with Agile methods, using Agile methods. Now we have this behind us. We have a design. This design was approved, and now we start doing that. And now we need a long-term prediction for our project. One reason is we have to have the right people, the right contractors, right machinery at the right time, at the right place. So we have to plan for that. And when you're 300 meters, 160, 70, no, 300 meters is 280 yards.
Looking like 1,000 feet.
Yeah, 1,000 feet, that's good. Yeah, when you're 1,000 feet over a valley, yeah. You cannot have a lot of sprints there and bring people and say, hey, is this what you like? You have to precisely know what you're doing at the moment and what you're going to do tomorrow and next week and next month. You need a lot of predictability there, and you also need a lot of risk reserves because things can go awfully wrong. Think of weather. Yeah. So you have to plan for all these uncertainties as well. So this is the other part of project management. But there again, you would evaluate your progress and you would adapt to maximize the expected value. During this time, you have less freedom, almost zero freedom to apply changes, but you can do things still better than you did them yesterday. Yeah? So I think it is true for both worlds. And by the way, between those two extremes, it's not that we have just a world in black and white. There is a lot in between that agilists often forget. There is, you said, progressive elaboration. I think that's a term you used earlier. Yeah, I prefer the term rolling wave. It's the same thing. We have something between this extreme productivity and this extreme short-term planning that is typical for Agile. But I think in all these cases, this is true. It's almost a platitude, actually. Yeah, almost. Yeah. Then system interactions, to understand that we are dealing with not just a one linear thing. We have many, many aspects of a project, and we have to integrate them to build a working system out of them. Yeah. So systems thinking. There is a statement in the Agile Practice Guide that I like very, very much. System means you can either optimize the system or you can optimize system components. You can never optimize system components and the system as a whole at the same time. That's part of what we have with system thinking here, to understand that there's a lot of interaction between things. And when you gain something at one point, you may lose something at another point, to understand it at least. Yeah, being responsive to them. Yeah. I would prefer to have being proactive and responsive, by the way. Responsive comes a bit late sometimes. But that's what the PMBOK guide says. So correct that it's said here. Leadership behaviors. Yeah, that's after discussion in organizations. To what degree are you allowed to be a leader as a project manager? Because the more power you have, the more influence you have, the less influence, the less power someone else will have. Power influence is a zero-sum game in an organization. So the more you give the project manager, the more you have to take away from someone else, maybe operational managers. Yeah. But another aspect is how we behave. And that's what this is about. Yeah. Demonstrate the behaviors that make good leadership. Yeah. Leadership is different than authority. What it means, it's a personal trait. Authority is more the position you are in. It's the power that you have. People.
Oliver,
yes.
Can you modify your leadership approach based on your real authority?
I think the authority will influence your leadership approach.
Okay.
And your leadership approach will model authority. Yeah.
Gotcha. So like, if I'm working in a projectized organization where the project manager and the team is full-time and the PM has maximum control,
yes,
could the leadership style that I use, like command and control or authoritative, be different than if I was in a very weak matrix organization? I might use something more collaborative.
Definitively. Go back to my example with the bridge. You cannot rely on self-directed, self-organized teams 3,000 feet over ground. Not 300 is too much. 300 feet over. Anyway, you cannot do it up on the bridge. When the bridge is built, you have to have a very clear chain of command. This is done by these people at that time. If you make anything wrong, you may have massive accidents. You will have dead people in the project, or a bridge that is no more useful. Then what is the place of a project manager when the first trucks cross the bridge? Where is the place of the project manager? What do you think?
I'm sorry, I was answering the chat question. Somebody's talking about value.
If you build a bridge,
yeah,
and you're finished, and the first trucks are going to cross the bridge, yeah, where's the place of the project manager?
On vacation?
No, under the bridge.
Should he be in the truck? Should he be in the first truck?
Under the bridge.
Under the bridge. Yeah.
Under the bridge.
Under the bridge. Yeah, should be
Good
under
one.
the bridge. Yeah. So,
Why?
and you understand my example. This is an example where your leadership style will have to be command and control, because otherwise you cannot be under the bridge when the first truck crosses the bridge. Yeah. So the leadership style is influenced by a lot of things. Authority is, of course, one of that. Yeah. The other question is, what is your personal responsibility, accountability in such a project? If you develop some additional functions to a corporate software, then in many cases, your personal responsibility, accountability is not that high. Yeah. I had a case 2 years ago where a big a self-made software system, a hodgepodge of different solutions, was replaced by a standard software. It was not SAP this time, by a big standard software, and it was a very, very difficult product. And if something goes wrong when they switch from one software world to the other one, then the whole operations would stand there, and it's in public visibility. So this was really a critical project. And while this organization was very, very strong on agile methods, they said, for this specific project, we cannot use them. We need someone who has a clear authority here, who is clearly filling a leadership role here, and where people have to listen and to do what they say. Otherwise, our operation may have a blackout.
Large and in charge.
Yeah. So a lot of factors come in. And by the way, you know my opinion anyway on leadership. Followers make leaders, not the other way around. Yeah, followers make leaders. It's not that leaders make followers; followers make leaders. Yeah.
I would say visionaries will have followers, right? Certain types of leaders will not get followers if they don't do it the right way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like if they try too much forcing.
Yeah. But let's get back to this one. It's about the leadership behaviors. It's not about leadership skills or what makes you a leader. It's about how do you behave. And it says, even if you're not a leader, please demonstrate leadership behaviors. By the way, there is the situational aspect here as well. Wayne talked about his book already. He was allowed to talk about his book. Let me talk about my first book, which is Situational Project Management. And this is exactly questions like this, as you see it here. You have to adapt your style to the situation, and the situations may change during the course of a project. Tailoring based on context. Tailoring, make your standard approach a specific approach for your project. By the way, I just like the word context here. I personally think it should say situation, because a lot of things can change here. And it's not just context, it's yourself as well. Who are you? How do you love to work? How do you want to do your project? If you work with a team, what is their preferred way to do things? Preferences of people play also into these questions. So it's more than just context. Context is part of that. Yeah. I think it's a bit too narrow. But apart from that, it's a situational approach to project management. Yeah. Each project is unique. Yeah. Many years ago, for my first book, I made some research over all those standards for project management. There is the PMBOK guide, there's a German standard, there is an Australian standard, there is a British standard, a Swiss standard, and so on. Do they have something in common? And they all have one thing in common, and that's the word unique or uniqueness. Yeah, the uniqueness of the project. That's the common thing for all of them. Yeah. So what makes you successful in one moment may fail in another one. And that's the basic principle here. Yeah. 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 Build quality into processes and deliverables. Yeah. The word quality is a very difficult word in project management, because if you ask 5 people, hey, what is quality in a project, you will get, I don't know, 6 different answers on that. And if you ask the same person in the morning and in the afternoon this question, you may get different answers as well. When we talk about quality, we always have to develop an understanding, what are we really talking about? Here, very basic understanding, satisfying expectations, fulfilling product requirements. Yeah? So that's part of that. I think if you ask a Japanese guy, the person may tell you, hey, that's not enough. Yeah? Meeting, fulfilling may not be enough. Yeah? You want to make people delighted. Yeah? You want to make people really happy, not just satisfied. Yeah? Happy is more than that. So again, but that's the definition of the PMBOK guide. Satisfaction, fulfilling requirements. That's a, I would say, very American and European understanding, right? Western understanding. Yeah. And here we see a bit our processes in here. Here's, if you like, a little bridge to PMBOK Guide 6th edition. Yeah. Navigate complexity. Complexity is a topic in projects, and during the course of the project, complexity is going up. Sometimes it is exploding. So we have to navigate it. We have to understand that it is growing, and we have to make sure that we cope with this growing complexity. I can tell you a major percentage of the projects that I see, project managers at some point in time are no more able to navigate complexity. It gets too much. The project managers, the teams, they have so much complexity. They have a complex system, and when they have to fix an error at one place, it creates new errors at 5 other places, because everything is so interconnected in here. So that makes it very difficult. Then add organizational complexity to that. In project business management, add business complexity to that, legal matters, financial matters. So that can be very, very difficult. Nevertheless, the job of the project manager is to keep all the balls up during juggling, to not drop a ball, because each dropped ball may cause us problems here. Yeah. Project teams can stay vigilant in identifying complexity and use a variety of methods to reduce the amount or impact of complexity. Yes, that's surely something we will need to do. Yeah. Can we reduce complexity, or can we make sure that it doesn't hurt us? Configuration management, our approaches for that, they're unfortunately not that important in the PMBOK guide. I would love that more time is spent on that. Optimize risk responses. Interestingly, in the second part of the PMBOK guide that we will discuss next week, risk is no more standing alone. Yeah, it is under uncertainty. How are risk and uncertainty connected? I have a wonderful definition of a good friend of mine, Dr. David Hilton, who often says risk is uncertainty that matters for the project here, of course. Yeah. There's a lot of uncertainty around. As soon as it starts to matter for the project, it turns into risk. Yeah. Here in the first part, it is still just talking about risk. Yeah. It tells us to do, or to optimize, or to improve maybe our responses. It doesn't tell us how to do that. Yeah. That's in the PMBOK Guide 6th edition, by the way. Yeah.
So risk is uncertainty, which can impact individual project issues, as well as on the organizational level can provide a risk exposure. So a very important element or factor is, what is the organizational risk tolerance, adverse versus, risk Risk
appetite.
tolerant, risk tolerant, right?
Yep, absolutely, and risk appetite. By the way, here's a mistake. Here's an error in the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. It says risk is uncertainty that has an effect on your objectives. No, it doesn't have an effect on the objectives. It has an effect on your ability to meet objectives. The objectives.
I would go one step further. I would say risk is the possibility that there may or may not be an effect on your project.
Exactly. Yeah. It's about
a risk is in the future. A risk is in the future. A risk has not occurred yet.
Exactly.
So we don't know if it'll have an impact.
Exactly. Correct. Yeah. We don't know if it will occur at all.
Mm-hmm. And when it occurs, it becomes an issue, and then it goes on the issue log.
Yeah. And often the worst risks of all, we don't even know that they exist.
The unknown
and surprise us. Yeah.
The unknown unknowns.
Yeah, the unknown unknowns, exactly. Yeah. Embrace adaptability and resiliency. You are a native speaker. I am not. I think it should say resilience, but okay.
Sorry.
Dan, you're a native speaker?
Yeah, I think it's wrong. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's resilient. Yeah.
Resilience. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I had a bit of problem with this word. Yeah, but anyway, it doesn't matter that much. We understand what it means. Yeah, adaptability, the ability to change maybe behaviors, approaches when necessary. Yeah, and resilience. Something goes wrong, we are able to recover. We are able to come back to our original plan, maybe, or our additional team function that have suffered, or whatever it is. Yeah, oh, there it is. Yeah. Absorb impacts and recover quickly from a setback or failure. Yeah. The PMBOK Guide says a focus on outcomes rather than outputs facilitates adaptability, because it allows us, when we are maybe unable to produce output A, to instead produce an output B, which leads to a similar or to the same outcomes. It gives us a bit more freedom to respond to surprises, positive or negative surprises, maybe, and to recover when something goes wrong in the project. So outcomes is broader. It allows us to pivot our approaches much more than outputs would do. Whether we in reality have this freedom is a completely different question. In project business, when you work under contract, you have to be very, very careful. You may run into a breach of contract situation, depending on the contract, of course. Enable change to achieve the envisioned future state. Yeah, we have to look into the future. And if you have a project in an organization, most of the projects change something in the organization. It's not just that we place a new software or a new piece of machinery into the organization. Somehow the organizational processes will change, people's way of working will change, and so on. By the way, some people may not like that. I remember just with this big standard software project that we had, there was a lot of resistance from people working in the organization, because their knowledge of the old software was an asset for them. It protected their job and it gave them value in the organization. This is the person who has the knowledge. And now with the new software, they had to acquire new knowledge and had to learn again. So they very much resisted this change, and they showed it. Some of them showed it very openly. Others were a bit more like sand in the gearbox or so, and slowed down processes there. So understanding that what we do in our project may bring change to the organization, and to address this change, not just what we do and our results and our deliverables, but this overall change that is happening there. That's also part of project management. My personal feeling when I see this is, of course, yeah, I cannot imagine doing projects differently. We have to look at the wider environment that the project happens in, and the internal environment and external environment, maybe. Yeah, but the PMBOK Guide actually, to be more accurate, the standard for project management addresses that as well. Yeah. Attempting too much change in a short time can lead to change fatigue and or resistance. I saw this just in an organization. Right? And stakeholder engagement, motivation approaches assist in change adoption. Yeah. So we have to work with the people, not only with the software, not only with the machinery, not only with numbers on drawings for the bridge or so. Yeah. We have to talk with the people. We have to take care of people. If you dislike working with people, you're probably not the right person to do a project. Yeah. So this was the first part of the PMBOK guide. And as I said, it's the smaller part. It has a lot of topics that it addresses relatively briefly. Yeah. Now we're moving over slowly to the second part.
I think we should pause. I think we should pause it right there today and do a nice QA.
Yes, please.
All right. And then we'll do the next section in our next class next week. So if you have any questions, if anybody has any questions, I will send out a recording of this later. But if you have any questions for Oliver, please let us know. Oliver.
Oh, Wayne. Wayne is also here. And Dan.
I got one for you here. Oliver, it says, conflict management and corporate politics are some of the common things a project manager faces quite frequently. Can we find detailed conflict management strategies in PMBOK 7?
As such, I would have to double check that.
My understanding,
as such, I would say
my
no.
understanding is no. My
understanding is no. Yeah, I don't remember I saw that.
If you want that, if you want those detailed strategies, you go back to PMBOK 6 for that.
Yeah, even the PMBOK Guide 6 doesn't have a detailed strategy for conflict management.
Well, she's talking about avoidance, transferal, collaboration.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. No, but it's not a detailed strategy for me. That's some approaches that you can have.
Yeah,
I would say no, but the thing is, if you have a standard, it is a strong tool for conflict management. Because if people agree on a standard, on the common use of a standard, you have a lot of conflict potential taken out. Terminology. Who are the stakeholders? One says it's the target people we work for. The other one say everyone can influence the project. As soon as you have a standard that clarifies that, you have one conflict potential less. So I think as a strategy, the entire project, the entire PMBOK guide as a strategy, using that's something that's in the PMBOK guide, of course, yeah, in both versions. But a specific strategy for a specific situation, I think should not be in such a standard, by the way. It's not the place for that. Yeah.
Good. Wayne, what were you going to say?
Yeah, it's funny talk about conflict management and whatnot, because yesterday in my PDU class, that was the topic that we did, conflict management and when to use what under what circumstances. And so maybe if a person was interested, they could go into the recordings there and look at that if they wanted.